Gilded Salt, a Jamaican story of love, loss, and restoration. Chapter 1. The Wedding. The humid air of Hope Gardens was thick with the scent of 1,000 blooming lilies and the expensive perfume of 500 guests. It was the kind of wedding people in Kingston talk about for decades, the kind that makes the front page of the social scales. I stood under a canopy of white orchids, my hand trembling slightly in Anthony's firm, warm grip. He looked like a god in his tailored linen suit, dark, sharp-featured, and radiating the kind of quiet power that makes people clear a path without being asked. When he looked at me, his eyes weren't just admiring, they were consuming. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever bought," he whispered as the priest droned on about holy matrimony. I chuckled, thinking it was a joke, a slip of the tongue from a man who spent his days acquiring real estate and tech firms. I didn't see the truth hiding in plain sight behind his designer shade. The reception was a blur of champagne towers and the thumping bass of a reggae fusion band. My mother, dressed in her best Sunday hat despite the Saturday heat, pulled me aside. Her eyes were wet with a mixture of pride and a strange flickering anxiety I didn't understand yet. "Tia, girl," she whispered, smoothing the lace on my shoulder. "You move up in the world now. Just remember who you are when the music stops, eh?" "Mama, I'm still Tia," I laughed, sipping my drink. "I'm just Tia with a bigger house." "Wealth is a loud thing, baby." It drowned out the small voices. I brushed her off. I was 26, a rising star at my marketing firm, and I had just married the most eligible bachelor in the parish. I felt invincible. The silence started in the car. The party was still roaring behind us at the gardens, but the moment the heavy door of Anthony's Mercedes-Benz thudded shut, the world went mute. The leather smelled of newness and cold ambition. Anthony didn't reach for my hand. He didn't tell me I looked beautiful again. He just loosened his tie and stared at the road ahead, his jaw set like he was calculating a closing cost. "That was a beautiful ceremony," I said, trying to bridge the sudden gap. "Everyone seemed so happy." "The catering was 5 minutes late with the lobster," he said, his voice flat. "I'll be clawing back 10% of their fee tomorrow." "Oh, I didn't even notice." "That's because you don't have to notice things anymore, Tia. That's my job." He reached over then, but he didn't stroke my cheek. He tucked a stray hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering a second too long, pressing slightly against my temple. "From now on," he continued, "you just focus on me. On us. I don't want you distracted by the noise of the world. You're a sterling now. We have a standard to keep." I looked out the window as we climbed the winding roads toward the hills of Jack's Hill. The city lights of Kingston sprawled out below us like fallen jewels. But as we ascended, the air grew thinner, and the houses grew further apart. When we reached the gates of our new home, a fortress of glass and steel, the security guard saluted. Anthony didn't acknowledge him. He just drove through. Inside the house, the silence was even heavier. It was a decorated silence, marbled floors, high ceilings, and art that cost more than my childhood home, but it felt hollow. I went to the bedroom to take off my dress, expecting him to follow, expecting the fire of a wedding night. Instead, I heard the click of his office door. I sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, still draped in layers of tulle and silk, listening to the hum of the air conditioning. I realized I was waiting for permission to breathe. The first night of my marriage wasn't spent in his arms. It was spent realizing that in this house, the only voice that mattered was the one that stayed silent until it had something to demand. Chapter 2. The Gilded Nursery. The transition from power couple to protected asset happened so slowly I didn't feel the shackles tighten until the metal was cold against my skin. Shane arrived on a Tuesday in July, a tiny, screaming miracle with Anthony's stubborn chin and my grandmother's wide, searching eyes. For those first few weeks, the house in Jack's Hill felt alive. The sterile silence was replaced by the rhythmic shush-shush of my slippers on the marble and the soft scent of baby powder. I was exhausted, but I was happy. I was ready to go back to work, to the spreadsheets, the client pitches, the loud, chaotic energy of the agency. I missed the Tia who drank too much coffee and argued about brand positioning. "I called HR today, babe," I said one evening, nursing Shane by the floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the glowing embers of the Kingston lights. "They're holding my VP position until next month. I think I'll start back 3 days a week." Anthony was pouring a glass of aged rum, the ice clinking like a gavel against the crystal. He didn't turn around. "No," he said. The word was so small, yet it filled the entire room. What do you mean, no? I felt a prickle of heat crawl up my neck. We discussed this. My career is. Your career was a hobby, Tia. A way to pass the time until you had a real purpose. He finally turned, his face unreadable in the dim light. Look at him. Look at our son. You think some mid-level marketing firm is more important than raising a sterling heir? It's not about importance, Anthony. It's about me. I need to work. I need my own mind. He walked over and knelt beside the nursing chair. He didn't touch me. He touched Shane's tiny hand. I've already handled it. I spoke to your boss this morning. I told him you've decided to retire to focus on the family. I've settled your severance. It's done. My heart hammered against my ribs. You did what? Without asking me? I am protecting you, he said, his voice dropping to that terrifyingly calm register he used during hostile takeovers. The world out there is loud and ugly. Here you have everything. You have the staff, the security, the comfort. Why would you want to leave paradise to slave for a paycheck I can earn in an hour? It's my money, Anthony. It's my life. He stood up, towering over me, the shadow of his frame blotting out the city lights. Everything you have is ours, and ours is managed by me. You're tired, Tia. The hormones are making you irrational. Go to sleep. He walked out, clicking the light off as he went, leaving me in the dark with a hungry baby and a sudden suffocating realization. The door to the world had just been locked from the outside. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in psychological pruning. Anthony began by optimizing my life. My car, the little sporty hatchback I'd bought with my first big bonus, was sold. Too dangerous for a mother, he claimed. In its place sat a tank-like black SUV that only his driver Winston was allowed to operate. Then came the restructuring of my social circle. I don't think you should see Sash today, he'd say over a breakfast I barely tasted. Why? She's my best friend. She's a gossip, Tia, and she's bitter. She'll fill your head with nonsense about independence because she can't find a man to take care of her. We have a reputation to uphold. Stay home. Invite the decorator over. Fix that guest wing. Slowly, the invitations stopped. My phone, once a hive of activity, became a paperweight. When I did manage to sneak a call to my mother, she sounded distant, her voice hushed. Anthony, call your father, she told me one afternoon. He say you stressed. He say you need quiet. He say we shouldn't bother you too much while the baby young. Mama, I'm not stressed. I'm lonely. I'm trapped. Hush, Tia, a man like Anthony. He provide. You have a good pick-me. Don't throw away gold looking for silver. Even my own blood was being colonized by his narrative. I started to wonder if I was the problem. Maybe I was ungrateful. Maybe this was what being a woman of stature meant in Jamaica, to be a beautiful, silent ghost in a mountaintop mansion. By Shane's 6-month birthday, I stopped wearing makeup. What was the point? The only person who saw me was Anthony, and he only looked at me to find faults. You're letting yourself go, he remarked one night, eyeing the yoga pants I'd lived in for 3 days. A sterling woman should be sharp, precise. You look soft. I'm a mother, Anthony. I'm tired. I hire a nanny so you aren't tired, Tia. Use her. Go to the spa. Get your hair done. I have a dinner with the Minister of Finance on Friday. I need you to look like you belong on my arm, not like you're the help. I spent the next day at the salon, sitting under the dryer for hours. I felt like a doll being repainted. I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. The sharp, ambitious girl from the agency was gone. In her place was a polished, hollowed-out version of a woman, dressed in silk and sadness. I was learning the most painful lesson of all. In Anthony's world, love wasn't a feeling. It was a transaction, and I had already been bought and paid for.